All right, Squadron, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to publish webhooks from your system to the interwebs using the Notice gem. So we've already got that installed for all our notification system, and I'm going to show you how we can just add some models so that we can store organization data and then use that to send webhooks out. So let's jump in. All right, Squad. So we've got a few people asking us for this inside of Clipflow. So the ability for Clipflow to, send off a message to Slack, or when something happens, like a piece of media is uploaded or a comment's left. And the simplest way to implement something like this, or the most flexible as well, is with webhooks. So a webhook can be either consumed or published. There's a lot of stuff on the internet about consuming webhooks. So when another system sends one, but there's not so much about actually publishing webhooks or like publishing to a webhook endpoint, right? So whenever an action happens in your application, we send an event with a payload of what's happened, right? And we send that to a URL. So the other system can grab that and then do whatever it needs to do. Systems just communicating with each other. Instead of us polling a REST API or someone polling our API, whenever something changes, they get that update. Right. So today I'm going to start looking at how we can implement webhooks into Clipflow directly. So this is a bit of a change from usual. We're actually doing it in a production system. But the usually way I start is I have a look at existing implementations. And I like to look at companies that are quite stable. So one of them is Stripe. So I have a look at this. We actually use the webhooks from Stripe into our system. But you can see here, they give a ID. This is a webhook endpoint. So they have a thing called webhook endpoint. So a lot of people have different things. So like you have in GitHub, will have just a webhook is available. So if we have a look at GitHub webhooks, you can go here, creating webhooks. So you can create a webhook they just actually call it a webhook. So you add a webhook. So the object is a webhook. So I like looking at the Stripe one because I was like, what is a good thing to name it? So they call it a webhook endpoint, which actually makes a lot of sense because I think the act of sending it is called the webhook. So I've always just called them webhooks. But here so we have a webhook endpoint. They have the option to API version it, the date that it got actually created. So this is just the actual entity. And then what events are enabled. So in our system, we'd have many events. So we would have comment.created. You can kind of look at how we've built our notification system inside our apps, notifiers. You can see comment created. So that's the event. So when I'm building the webhooks, I'll probably build it on a very similar format. And I might even use the notifier to deliver by webhook to here. So this is going to be quite an interesting challenge here for us. So we're going to have a webhook endpoint. So that's the first model. So we have to have the user be able to create a webhook endpoint, which will be dropping in the URL and then a secret. So this is so that you can confirm that webhook in fact did come from the other system. It's a secret that you both share and you can match. And then you've got the enabled events. And usually you'd send this because we're sending this, submit through, we'll make sure it needs to be HTTPS. So we'll send it in the headers. And then we have the events that we want to go. So you could either go individual events. So if you only cared about when comments were created, we only cared when media files were created, you could only do those, or you can go all. They have their kind of sandbox mode and then their live mode. So we probably wouldn't worry about that right now. But this is a good starting point. So what we need to do here is we would probably need to have some models. So we'll have like a webhook endpoint, and then we could either have a webhook event. Some systems just call it an event, but I think that can get a bit messy, especially if you deal with things that actually are events like dates. Like we deal with things in dates and times on a calendar, and that kind of for me gets a bit confusing. So I think if we have it as a webhook event or like an API event, or API log. It's just an entry, right? I think for simplicity, a webhook's event's quite clear. So this is what we're going to kind of end up building now. First things first, I'm going to create that model. So if we jump in here, close off the server, I'm going to go Rails G model, and it's going to be webhook endpoint. I like that naming. We'll roll with that in the system, I think. And we're going to create a new webhook endpoint. All right, so we're going to hit that. And you know me, I don't add all these in. I do it inside this thing old school. So we're going to go db migrate and find that file, create webhooks. So we're going to belongs to an organization. We can basically follow what we've got here, right? So what we had before. I'm going to copy this and then I'm just chuck it in here so I can see it for reference. So we don't need that. We don't need that. API version we don't really have right now. I think it is a good standard here to actually have that in here, to be honest. T-string API version. This is going to be our V1 webhooks. I like to version things. You've probably seen that as well. We're going to have our date timestamps. Don't need an application. We're going to have a t.jsonb, and it's going to be enabled events, right? So that's going to be an array in JSONB. Live mode we don't need. Metadata we don't need. We can add the secret here. I think this is good. And we are going to have the URL. So that's pretty much what we got here. So we're kind of looking at that, and they have a status enabled as well. Yeah, I'm wondering if that's also a good thing, so you can turn it on and off quite easily. We can add that. We have a thing in our system and the convention. So it's a Boolean, and then it's called is enabled, and the default will be true. I'm just going to see where else we use it. Version key inside of our thing. Yeah, we use version key. So maybe what we'll do here is webhook endpoint version key. Yeah, let's just use version key just for consistency here. And then the default, we're just going to say V1, yeah? Okay. All right, so that's our webhook endpoint. I think that looks pretty good. So what we're going to now do is just run Rails DB migrate. Send that. Now what we want to do is we want to create the webhook event. So we're going to create this, and it's going to be a webhook event. It's quite clearly named. All right, so I like it, I guess. We shall see in the future. So we're going to go webhook event. So this is going to belong to a webhook, and that's a webhook endpoint, because that's going to give us all the data that needs to happen there. It'll tell us about that. I'm also going to scope or add it to organization. I just do this to make it really easy to do scope when we're using our policy scoping. So that makes it much easier. So what I also do is I'm having a look at this other platform that they actually offer basically webhooks as a service. And this is another place to just have a look at what we can do here. So you have the ability to create an endpoint. It's got the same concept here, what types it can do, what channels, a secret, which is the same, any headers you want to select. So that's probably something quite interesting that we could also enable if you wanted to send special headers. It kind of gets like, obviously this is a service that wants to do for everyone. We probably don't need that right now, but we could add it. So that has that. And then the message. So they call it a webhook message, I imagine. So here's the data. So the payload goes. What else do they have in here? So what they do here is they have a message and then an attempt. So they're retrying. So they're backing off. So this is something you can add into it, but it does create complexity. And this is what this product's trying to solve, right? They're only building a product for webhooks. So what they do is you get a message that's ready to be submitted, and then it will retry and I imagine have back off. So it'll try there and then try 5 minutes, then try an hour, try the next day. I don't care so much about that. We really just want to, this is like a utility thing. It's nothing mission critical. But what you can see is like we got the response status code, the message that it was actually sent with. So these are the kind of things. The reason why we want to store this is so that we can have a log and see what's happened. Like if a message actually went. So we want to be able to say, this message went to this endpoint, it had this payload, and this is what happened, and it failed or it succeeded, right? So what we want to do here is we want to have a string, I believe, and it's going to be status code. We could even say t.boolean is success or whatever. We want to do something there so we can have the code plus if it was successful or not. Status 0 message ID, so we don't care about that. We've got the endpoint ID, and then the message. So we want to have, this is actually the for me would probably be the payload. So that's storing the message on here, which is quite interesting. It's right here. It's there, right? So we've got this kind of thing going through here. Yeah, because I want to call it the payload, but it's the body because we also want to have like the event type and ID and everything. I like how this is encapsulated like this, but I don't want to call it message. So it's almost like it's the body of the event. And let me have a quick look and see how else we could structure this. So in GitHub, for instance, they have an actual just payload here. So you can see what it is, right? So the action, the issue, the repository, etc. And that's generally what I call the payload object. But what we'd probably be storing in here is JSONB, I imagine, and it would be request body, right? And then what we also want is we want the request body, but we also want the response body as well. Now this is tough because like I don't know if JSONB, because it could also be a string, because we want to see what we sent, but also what we got back. I think that's pretty good. We got the organization with the webhook, and then we should be testing that. So what we'll do is we'll have a look and see what else we can actually improve here. So I asked my mate Claude, but it's a whole bunch of noise, I reckon. It's probably useful if you're creating a really robust webhook system, but in the beginning, I'd prefer to do fewer things. The event ID it's going to have an ID, so we don't need to generate that. That doesn't make sense to me. The event type, so that's enabled events. So that's probably not a bad idea actually to have event type here. What we could also use or leverage as well is if we looked at like notification event, noticed events. Yeah, so the event type there, right? That's probably not a bad idea. We could add in here, we can go t.string event type. This is if we're going to do a delivery tracking here. So if you want to do attempts, you could go delivery attempt 1, and then you could keep going, and you could say the reason we have scheduled at and delivered at is so that we can say it's scheduled, and then you send it, and then you could make the deliver or the next time if it failed in the future. I'm not going to go that complex just now. The HTTP status code, so that's an integer. So let's go integer. That makes sense. Probably don't need it. I mean, is success. I think we'll probably do that just for simplicity for lookup. So we can just quickly find is success, is fail. It just makes it easier. We don't have to try and say if it's success, it's this whole array of status codes. The HTTP method is always going to be a post, so I won't do that. Response headers, that's probably useful. Error message, that's just going to be the response body. Delivery status, so that's pending, delivered, failed, or cancelled. Yeah, I mean, that's probably not a bad one, right? So let's go here, pending, delivered, failed. I'll even leave the comment there, that's pretty good. And then the event data. So this is important for us. So that's the payload. I'm wondering if the response body is just that, or the request body, and then the request headers. So let's add those in. Don't know about this one. I think we could probably just put that in the request body. The signature that was used shouldn't really change. Idempotency key. I can't even say the word. That's so you can create a string and then you only ever run it once. I don't know exactly how I'd handle that right now, so I'll probably just leave that out, yeah? For now, I mean, that's a nice improvement. This is why AI is quite powerful in these instances, just for helping us set up these things. I've seen a million of them. So that's pretty good. So now we've got webhook endpoints. It's going to fire. When it fires, it's going to save a webhook event. And then when that gets sent, we're going to change it to delivered, failed, or cancelled. I think that will work, right? So let's run that. Send it with Rails DB migrate. All right, that's gone. What I've actually just noticed here as well, which is really funny. So notice the notice gem that we use actually provides the delivery method webhook. So we don't have to write any of the delivery code itself. We just actually need to store. We may not even need the event. I mean, that might be handled by them. Let's see. So if we have, do we have noticed? I don't know if it has that, but this is actually interesting because it might not store so I'm not going to remove this model just yet, but we still need to create these in our system, right? Because we need to manage that. Because this is kind of like hard coded, right? We need to pull that from somewhere, but we can actually use this method. So it's going to be really quite easy to hook in. That's really cool. So we don't have to write all the delivery mechanism, which saves us a lot of time. If we have a look, they've got noticed, event job, and then I think they'll have it inside of the lib folder. Noticed, bulk delivery methods, webhook. Here we go. I mean, this is very simple. So what we've got is the deliver job. It's the post request. So it's always a post. It's going to grab the URL. It's going to grab basic auth, headers, JSON, or form. So it's not doing too much here for us. If we have a look, try and find the post request method. Is it in here? Post request. So here it lives in the API client. Post request just does a request, posts it, and then it just returns a response. So it actually doesn't do any sort of logging because we actually want the logging, right? Like we want to be able to make it easier to debug. We don't want this to just kind of disappear into the ether. This is all right. So we're going to get the response back here. It's just whether or not we can actually get access to this. We can do the around action, so we'll do this. It's a bit of a different way of doing this, but I think it's really cool. I'm just going to set up this, I've just gone to webhook.site and it's creating a unique URL for us that we can just test this with. So we're going to create and set up our webhook endpoint, right? Let's run Rails S here again. And then in here, we're going to just reload Rails C. We're going to go webhook endpoint.create. And it's going to be organization.find one. What else do we need? This is probably not going to even work because I need to set up the model. So let's just quickly do that. I'm going to go to models, webhook. Here we go. All right. So it belongs to organization. Oh, I shouldn't have closed that file. All right. Belongs to organization. That's fine. And these are all fine. Okay. So we can pretty much get away with just that. So for now, this is going to crash. We're going to reload and then we're going to go that. All right. And then what we're going to say, version key is going to default. The URL is going to be this guy, copy. Okay, so we're going to send it there and we're going to enable events. Let's go here, is going to be, I like this, we're just going to go all. This is going to be our mechanism for all, right? It's the same as Stripe. So enabled advanced all and is enabled is true. Is that default? Yep, that's defaulting. So we don't even have to set that. So if we hit save on create on that, there we go. We've got it. All right. So now what we want to do here is we've created the webhook endpoint. I'm going to close that off. There's a whole bunch of validation that we'll also want to be doing. But what we're going to do here is we're going to say when a comment is created, we want to deliver by, and I wonder, let's just have a look at notice quickly. Where'd you go, champion? Did I close it? Here we go. Delivery methods. So it's the bulk delivery method. So it's webhook. And then we're going to do this. So we're going to deliver. So usually we deliver by ably, we deliver by batch, and now we're also going to deliver by webhook. So we got access to the record. So this is the comment itself. So inside of notice, we have the noticed event and we have the record. So we need to also get the organization because we want to see if the organization has any webhooks we can use. So I'm just going to check. So I'm going to say comment.last.organization. Let's just see if it actually is delegated. No. So it's going to be subject. So that's delegated there. I'm just wondering about that. So you can see when we call it here, we are actually passing in the organization. So it's self.owner is the organization. I'm just wondering if we can have access to that inside of this config block. It only injects it into here. So we just need to make sure we can actually do that. Let's have a look. Yeah, so you can't run what I'm doing here in the block. So what we actually got to do is let's run the config.if, and then let's just see if it will actually run this, because I'm actually trying to see how we can get out the information we need, because we need to like find the URL of the webhook. So here we're going to basically say only deliver by webhook if the organization actually has a webhook endpoint. So let's see if we can add another comment. It's crashed there. This is going to get real gross real fast. Where are you, champion? It's not even getting there. That's annoying. All right. Well, I meant to have an equal sign there, so that's probably also part of the problem. So let's give that another go. This is going to be real fun. Constantly watching that fail. It's not getting to the point though. Option URL must be set. Grab it. Let's just hard code that just so it can stop complaining. It's probably not even getting past. Not the markdown version of it, just actually in here. It's not getting past that, I think. So let's try again. This is the fun part. Like we are hooking into another library, right? So hopefully it can do a little bit of the lift for us so we don't have to worry too much. But sometimes like it might even be quicker just to write our own. Okay, here we go. So we got it. It actually did its thing, but we got a crash here. You can see here. Undefined local variable method recipient for an instance. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So we're here. That's the problem, okay? But now what we can do is we can just go here. I'm just going to put some stuff. I'm going to also just see, so we've got the record. I'm basically just trying to see what I have access to in here and just see what we can do. So now if we run that again, let's find that. It's a comment. And then do we have anything else? That's it. So it's a comment and that's the record. And then did we have these? We should have this somewhere. There, it's nothing. Okay, so we don't have access to the params object. There we go. We've got the organization object. That's what I was after, right? Okay, so that's actually just there. So we've got access to that in the config. So what we want to do here is we want to say webhook endpoints and equal to organization.webhook. Make sure we add that to our model. So we're going to go into our model. We're going to go into organization, and it's going to have many webhook endpoints. So it has many, and it's dependent destroy. Okay, so we've got that. Great. So there, and then we're going to say, now what we can do is we can add things like this. We're going to add a scope. So for instance, we're going to say here where, we're going to basically say where active. So I'm just going to grab this one. Where active. And it's going to be where, I think it's is active is what we made, or is enabled. Let's just check. So we're going to go webhooks. we've got is enabled. So we're going to actually name this where enabled, and then it's going to be is enabled true, just so we can define that once. Webhook endpoints where enabled. What else do we need to know? We also need to know that it includes, so enabled events includes this. So this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge because we need to say either it has a star. So I might even get my mate Jippity to help me write a scope. So it's going to be scope where event enabled. And then what we want to actually do is the event here. I guess it's the event key. I think that's what it is. Let's have a look here. So if we're going to notice, what did they call it? It was the event type. Claude just said to me, it just simply looks like this. Let me just copy paste it. Maybe I'm making a foof. There we go. All right, good. Cool. So now we got enabled event all, or if we were doing something specific, we do comment.created, right? So that's picked it up because this webhook endpoint has that enabled. Let's try something though. Let's go in here and just say, okay, let's just for funzos. The only one that this one does is mediafile.created. Let's run it again. Nothing. Okay, perfect. And then if we said mediafile created, boom, there we go. Love it. But for now, this webhook wants everything on. Send it. All right, love it. So that's working. Okay, so now we can use where event enabled. So I'm just creating this little scope here. So we're going to go say webhook endpoints, where enabled, where event enabled is, and we can use we want to use the event type, but it's just here. It's comment created. Boom. Okay. So that's what we want to look for here. I don't really want to loop through. I don't think this thing even has that functionality to be able to loop through every webhook. And to be honest, maybe that's something we want. And maybe that's why we need to create a custom notifier. And it might be the path we do. And it's a bit of more advanced. But for now, I'm just going to show you, you have one webhook per basically event. You either have one for everything or you have one. You can't have multiple. We're just creating that constraint right now, but I think that's probably not flexible enough. But we've got it enabled and we're checking the events. It has to have a URL to be created. So we're all happy days now, right? So if webhook endpoint, right, I'm going to say dot first, right? Does this need to return? We're going to have to re-specify this again, which is annoying. Let's see, we're going to go, how do we get this URL out now? So I think you can go here, def, webhook, and then we can just grab that. And we should be able to do this, right? Hopefully. If webhook endpoint dot present. And then the URL would just be webhook endpoint dot URL, right? I think that's it. Let's have a look and see what happens. So here, go back into our little system. We hit test, hit send it. Undefined variable or method webhook endpoint. Well, it's right there. So you do have to pass it that it is a function there, like this. I just don't know how to do it in the if block because that's an interesting one. I wonder if we do stuff like, so we could say webhook URL is webhook endpoint. I wonder if we can do something like this. So it's throwing on class on line 31. So that was that one. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's try this, and then I want to try another method as well. Yeah, so it's on the URL point. That's fine. Okay, so if we go test again, send it. Okay, did it send something? It didn't crash. There we go. We got a post request. Here we go. So we got a webhook running. Love it. So we're actually sending a webhook now. So we're not consuming. I believe that's it. Yep. Request details. Sent nothing. Love it. User agent Ruby. This came from development. We sent nothing. So we really achieved our goal. But that's good. But what I also wanted to just see is like if we used a Lambda block here, we went webhook endpoint.url. Would that work? I just want to see if that's a bit tidier. So just clean that up. Man, it's manual testing. Super annoying. Okay. That looked like it went again. There we go. Cool. It did work. Okay. So you can do that as well. So then you don't have to do this nonsense. Keep it cleaner. All right. So that's good. That's nice. Now what we want to do, I imagine the JSON is the JSON payload we actually want to send. So what I would want to do here is I actually want to deliver something like what Stripe does, right? So here we're going to go the ID. So this is the looking of the actual endpoint, but what we want to send is a Stripe. I'll have a look at what a Stripe body looks like. Okay, so this is really cool. So inside of the Stripe dashboard, I'll make it a little bit bigger. You can see all the events that happen, right? So Stripe just literally calls it an event. But you can see here, we've got the event ID. We'll just use the noticed event IDs actually, because I think that's pretty good for now if we're going to do that. And then in here, we've got the object, right? So it's basically saying a customer was created, and then this is the object of a customer. So it's the customer object. So for me here, it's the comment was created. So I want to deliver the actual comment that was created. It's the comment object. So that's the object. What else do they have in here? So they've got the event ID. So I'm imagining that that's the data. I'm thinking about the object here, and it's almost like payload is the comment for now. And then here we're going to have the ID, and I actually just want to use the notification for now. Notification ID. Why is this crashing? I've created too many of these. That's why. That's it there. Okay. Sweet. Hope you guys are having fun watching us debug through this, but I think it's a really nice little wrapper here because we already got this event thing firing. Let's send that. Is it coming? Did it crash? Oh, what happened? Something broke? Undefined local variant notification. Okay, so it doesn't have that notification there. How do we get access to that? Because we do want that ID here. All right, so I'm just trying to debugger, and literally if I just call self.id, that's the thing, because I am the event. So that helps. So there, sometimes just use the debugger. Happy days. It should continue. All right, let's go again. Good times. So we're going to hit send. Please go. Yes, there it is. All right, cool. So latest one is this one. There's our payload. There's our ID. Lovely. All right, we're making some business. We're about to cross the finish line. So if we go here, so what we're going to do is we're going to serialize this. We're going to use the comment serializer. So I've done some videos on this guy. It's really cool. But what we want to do here is we want to go comment serializer.render. And here it is the record, right? So that's what we want to render. You can actually see us doing it here. So I might grab that right there, stick that in. So what we want to do is we want to do the actor, which is the person who did it, any asset files, any replies as well on that comment, which realistically should be none, to be fair. So let's see. That's it. I think we're there. So if we hit test now, hit send, we should get something here. There it is. Boom, there it is. Job done. So now what are we doing? We are actually getting it. Someone's creating a comment in Clipflow. Clipflow is using our notice gem with hooking into the webhook here, which I think is pretty good. And I'll test it for a little bit more, get a little bit higher and more advanced use case and check that it works. But it's going there. We're sending the ID of the event. So I'll probably use a slightly different ID there. And it's sending the payload, right? And then after that, we want to then go and store that record of like this happened, because we want to store all this kind of stuff like what was the response and all that kind of thing. And also to send the secret in the headers and kind of a little bit more advanced stuff, which you can do. I saw that you could do that there. But now you're getting the full payload. So the system on the other end, what we also probably want to do here, just quickly, is event type, right? So this will be self.event type. And I wonder if we could almost use it here as well. Because I feel like I could almost use self.event type every time. Let's see if that still works. Yep, there it goes. Comment created, right? So now on the other system, gets this webhook, gets comment created, they can do whatever they want with it. They could, we want to implement this or integrate this with N8N or something. N8N can say comment created, here's the payload, grab what it needs, which would realistically be the message body, right? Which is just test somewhere here, this piece. That can then post that into Slack. So now we don't have to go and create a Slack integration. We can just webhook this out to wherever you want it to go, and you can do whatever you want with it. So it's going to become more powerful because we're going to add this for every single entity. So when you create a media file, boom, you can send an email. You can do whatever you want with it now. And you can do it on your system. You can say like, okay, go and fetch the media file because I want to now go and do some processing with it. Or I want to automatically upload that. That doesn't become our problem now to handle this. So it's very cool. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed that one. If you want to see some more advanced use cases of this and how we can actually improve on this more, let me know in the comments. But until next time, see you later.